Okay, so let's start by looking at the structure of the United Nations. Now, the first point to note is the UN is made up of a group of international institutions. The best known of these is the Central Organization, the Central United Nations System. Now, most of you will recognize the UN headquarters in New York. There are 5 main organs of the UN, 5 main divisions, if you like. But in this lecture, we're going to look at only 4 of them: the Security Council, the General Assembly, the Secretariat, and the Economic and Social Council. We'll talk about the role of the International Court of Justice when we look at international law later on in this semester. So, firstly, as the name suggests, the purpose of the Security Council is to focus on security. It has 5 permanent member countries, and its main responsibility essentially is to maintain international peace and security. It has the power to issue directives and, if necessary, to send in peacekeeping forces to help reduce the risk of war in problem areas of the world. So the Security Council is the one organ which has some military power. But the other organs of the UN really don't have that kind of power. Okay, so turning to the General Assembly, this is like the Parliament of the United Nations, the political arm, if you like. In political terms, it carries a lot of weight. All the UN member states are represented in the General Assembly, and each member state has 1 vote. They vote on important matters related to international peace and security, and many other issues as well. But whatever the General Assembly decides on any issue is basically a recommendation. It is not a binding decision. So this means they can't force any state, any country to do anything. However, the General Assembly's recommendations are important. They are important indications of world opinion, and they represent the moral authority of the community of nations. And because of this, the UN has moral authority. The General Assembly tries to ensure the governments of its member states treat their people well, that they behave in an ethical way, in other words. Moving on now to the Secretariat. This is essentially administrative. It's led by the Secretary-General, who is normally a global figure of some importance. Think of recent Secretary-Generals like Kofi Annan or Ban Ki-moon. As well as having an administrative role, the Secretariat carries out research, but it's mainly bureaucratic and it doesn't have that much obvious political power. The Secretary-General, though, does have an important diplomatic role. Okay, the next organ is the Economic and Social Council, abbreviated to ECOSOC. ECOSOC is responsible for overseeing the activities of a large number of other institutions within the United Nations. It operates with the authority of the General Assembly, and its main purpose is to coordinate the economic and social work of the UN. ECOSOC also oversees a large number of other institutions, such as the World Health Organization. They have their own budgets and their own heads and so on, so financially and politically speaking, these institutions are independent. And they're big financial institutions. For example, the WHO budget for 2012 to 13 was approximately $2.5 billion.